You can take a seat, don't worry. Universities wanted to do it through schools, and he believed that God was doing something amazing. I said, okay, cool, sign me up. The only thing I didn't know is that it was the day after movie night with my kids. So I'm so tired. Like, we have this every Friday, me and my kids, we have movie night. And trust me, like, I'm so tired. Like, we just watch a string of whatever we want to watch and moves until the next day. And it's a beautiful thing. So when I was thinking about that, just the relationship that I get to have with my sons, one of the stories that I love to share with people was when I was growing up, my dad was a very strict disciplinarian. Like, he was crazy strict disciplinarian. Like, nobody, everyone in my neighborhood called my dad General. Right? No, for real. Like, people would get scared. Like, oh, the General. You know, like, he's the General around. I'll give you one really cool story. So my dad, we all knew that no one could come near my sister, right? So why this thing like no one could come near my sister? Apparently one time my sister and I would take a walk, we come back, and some guy happened to spot my sister and felt that he had the bravery to come to our gate and holler at my sister. Now I'm just giving you a backstory. So unfortunately, the time this guy decides to come to our gate, he finds a work outside and says, I'm from a jam girl, most way that a light skin girl. So, and the guy who works there is like, oh my God, hey. And even he's surprised because no one's ever seen a guy come to our gate for our sister. And then, unfortunately, my dad is driving out. So he's driving out, sees this guy sitting outside. And my dad asks the worker, says, Ngaudia, Inan, who's that? So he says, Abuona Bakazi. Oh my God. And I was walking out and I see this happen. I'm like, oh, it's about to go down. And my dad's like, you didn't go see. I'm like, oh my God. So I tell my sister, like, listen, I don't know who's outside, who's dumb enough to come and see you. But she's like, who would come and see me? I'm like, yo, come and see this for yourself. So we go outside, we step outside, and my dad's asking, right in front of him, guys, what do we show you? And my sister's like, no, you don't know him. She goes, no. Okay. My dad goes, Monet? No, shut up. Shut up. Starts throwing punches at him. And this guy takes off running. Now, any normal man would just say, oh, let him go. Not my father, no. See, by this time, we all had a sixth sense of danger. We all knew that if something like this is happening, I had already told my brother. Now, my brother Damien, he's a martial artist. If you've ever met him, one of the most disciplined martial artist guys. So I'm already telling him, like, yo, someone is about to get whooped. So my dad goes, Hiten Musuka. So that's his other name. So Hiten Musuka. I'm like, oh, don't worry, it's already done. So my brother used to train himself constantly. So he had sticks, right? So like these like wooden sticks, these nunchucks, and he was already on his way to the car. And they jump into the car with my dad and the worker, and they chase after this guy in a vehicle. I'm giving you a backstory. So they chase after this guy in the vehicle, and of course I'm there waiting. I'm like, what? Man, I hope they don't catch that dude. No. 10 minutes later, the car is coming back. My dad's in the front seat. My brother, the worker, guess who's in the middle? That guy. So they drive into the yard, and my dad, listen, understand that my dad was fully dressed up in a suit, wherever he was going to work. But that day, they take him into a room, right? Our little TV room. My dad gets there, takes off his whole gear, jacket, everything, and remains in a vest. If you've ever seen like what we call a die-hard vest, like if you've ever seen the movies that like those action, Dominic Toretto, you know what I'm saying? Like Fast and Furious, that's what my dad remained, right? And my dad's next words are, Munene, Ulandewe, Bantu, Katawalandewe, Tawafume. So this guy I remember, I'll never forget this. I mean, this is way over 10 years ago. This guy gave a name. He said, no, my name is Everstone. I have never met a black Zambian guy with a name called Everstone, but I had to give him credit for lying. If it wasn't for my mom, because my dad was like, how did you see her? Where did you? And then he opened up like, no, I saw her walking, shiny. I liked her, and I felt like, you know what I'm saying? And then my mom was like, what church do you go to? My dad's like, definitely London. But eventually, Everstone left that room alive. So that's a bit of a backstory on my father. And the reason why I wanted to share that is because with the song that we're gonna do, you know, it's always, for me, it's my best song. It's the best song that I've ever written in my life. And the reason why I say that is because coming from that background, everyone was fearful of my dad. Like back then, it was like fear. And at one time I'm in youth group, and one of my youth pastors, his name is Johan Richter, he goes, listen, you know, with young people, the problem is we're always like, my parents are not doing this, my parents are not like that, my parents don't, he says, do you understand that you also have a responsibility or an obligation to love on them? You see, for them, he's like, their life and how they're loving you is what they're providing for you. So, my dad would get up in the morning. For him, all his work, every accolade, everything he'd ever had gotten was for the purpose of to give to my kids. And his way in life was that maybe they're going to respond and recognize that I love them in that manner. So I started doing this thing where I'd come and I just hug my dad out of the blue, like just hug him. Be like, what's the issue with this? I'm like, no, I just want to hug you. And we started building a relationship where I just hug him, just like hugging. And I started realizing this man was a softie. On the inside, like all these years of fear, and just feeling like, yeesh, man, you know, there he is, don't stop. You see his car coming, run. And now, when you begin to understand, he started opening up his life stories about growing up and different things, and we became really close. And when I was going off to college, we didn't have enough money for me. No, I'm coming back for holiday, shot. It was like a one-way, going to the States, we get done, and come back. So at the airport, and my dad and I having a conversation, and he had started to have a heart issue. So I said, Dad, I love you so much, and I'm really afraid that if I go, I won't, something will happen. And he goes, don't worry, you'll find me. Those were his last words before I left. So of course, right before graduation at that time was like a few months away in June, and this is like March, right? February, March. I start getting phone calls from my family saying, hey, listen, something happened to Dad, he's in ICU, and right now, the doctor says he probably only has like a week or two to live. You need to think about coming back to Zambia. So I called my mom. My mom was by his bedside. I said, Mom, can I talk to you? Can I talk to Dad? She goes, no, here's the phone. And apparently my dad's like, oh, I didn't tell you guys, I didn't want to tell you, but let me tell you, I was diagnosed with cancer. And his heart was growing. The only place they could do a surgery on him was India. And they didn't get a chance. They said like, no, it's such a bad condition. He now couldn't even fly, right? And he already had diabetes. So now, for me again, my parents were prayerful people, right? Every night, 3 a.m., pray. Everything about our lives is prayer. So it's not like I didn't grow up in an environment. So for me, the most powerful people of faith that I ever saw in my life were my parents. It wasn't like, no, I had a papa, a spiritual father, somewhere. No, it was my dad and my mother. So my dad is telling me, I'm like, oh God, let's pray. And he says, no, it's okay. He says, I'm ready. Oh man, I'm now broken. My heart is just drops. Because I'm thinking, wait, this is the most spiritual person I know in my life, who I'm expecting to say, yeah, pray. He says, it's a wrap. So I go that afternoon, and there's a lady who called Leanne Merrill. She was preaching on faith, and I go and listen to her. And she says, you know, sometimes you just gotta grab a hold of a situation and just make it happen. So I said, okay, cool. So that day, the next day, I called my mom. I'm like, Mom, where? She's like, Mom, I'm in the hospital with your dad. I said, okay, can I talk to Dad? She goes, okay. She gives him the phone. And I said, Dad, say this with me. He goes, hi. I said, say I'm healed. He's like, no, it's okay, don't worry. And I'm like, no. I said, say I'm healed. He says, okay, I'm healed. I said, say I'm whole. He said, I'm whole. I said, say Jesus Christ paid the price 2,000 years ago. And he said, Jesus Christ paid the price 2,000 years ago. I said, okay, cool. I'm not going to call you for 3 days. I'll call you after 3 days. And so now those next 3 days, I was nervous. Because I'm thinking every phone call that comes, like, yo, it's time. And so the third day, I call my mom. I'm like, hey, Mom, how are you doing? She goes, hey. I says, are you at the hospital? She says, no, I'm at home right now. I'm like, okay, when you get to the hospital, give the phone to Dad, let me talk. She goes, oh, he's actually outside taking a walk. I'm like, what? She goes, he needs to tell you this himself. So my father, I'm like, yo, Dad, what happened? He goes, you would not believe it. I'm like, get me. And he goes, when you prayed for me, all I did was I repeated those words. Then I said, call the doctor right now. And the doctor came. I said, I'm standing up. And he's like, the doctor's like, how? He's like, no, I'm healed. And the doctor's like, no, Mr. Nsuka, what? No, this and this. He's like, no, I'm healed. And they started, for days, they started running tests. And the next thing they realized, okay, everything was gone. So the day now I'm getting back to Zambia, guess what? That promise of you'll find me was fulfilled. Now, the story doesn't end there. Why I'm telling you this, this is the song I'm about to sing. Can I just have some water right now? This is dry. So now, we get back, we're having some amazing times. Thank you so much. So we're having some amazing times. And then one night, that's why if you watch, I'm a big wrestling fan. WrestleMania tomorrow night. Woo! My dad started us like one of the closest things we used to love watching wrestling. We love watching wrestling. So the night before we're watching wrestling, we're laughing, everything's cool. Next morning, I'm heading out to church. He goes, oh, we should do a newspaper, because he liked the evening service. So I'll go for the morning service. I'm like, okay, go. So I go, I come, then I'm singing first service. I'm about to go into second service. And my phone rings. And it's my mom saying, you need to come home, there's something wrong with your dad. She had gone shopping, so she goes. So I grab another pastor, tell the pastor, I'm like, I can't sing in the second service, there's something wrong. She says, okay, go with one of the pastors. We rush home. I get home, and I find my mom in her room with trying to get my dad up. She goes, there's something. She goes, help me. And now, the strongest person I've ever seen in my life, I see them in the most weakened state. He was unconscious. I start crying. My mom's like, come on, strengthen him, get him up. So I get him up. We're riding to the hospital. He's unresponsive. He's on my lap because he's in the back seat between me and my mom. And I'm praying, like, God, do something. So we get to the hospital. The doctor checks his pupils dilated. They're like, listen, he's gone. And I'm in my spirit. I'm like, okay, God did it before. Resurrected. Come on, God, like, do it. Do it. Nothing. And now I'm just defeated. I'm broken. And it's a state funeral. It's 1 whole week of mourning. Because he worked in government, so it's 1 whole week. So we buried my dad. I'm just like, I see this high and I see this low. And so 1 week later, I try to go back to the office. I'm like, okay, I'm good. And then I'm driving out, I go to a gas station, and a guy comes and knocks on my window, and he goes, newspaper? And I start crying. I am shaking, because the last thing I ever heard my dad say was, give me a newspaper. So I called my sister Cassie, the same one who. So I'm like, yo, I need help. She goes, okay, you can go to my apartment. So she gives me the keys, I go to her apartment, and I just like, now I'm arguing with God. Me and God, I'm like, there's no way I was away for all these years, and then all of a sudden I'm back, and I'm getting a chance, and in just a few months, like my dad dies, because he died in November, I got back in June. I'm like, why would you do this, what? And I remember the Lord saying this so vividly. He said, you didn't lose your father. He said, I've always been your father. He said, every good thing that you saw in him was me loving you through him. That's what God said. And I remember a conversation I had with my dad where he told me about his life story from the time he was young. I thought he was just the most fascinating person in the world. And I said, oh, Dad, you need to write a book. And I remember him saying, he's like, I don't think I'm a very good person. I don't know how my life will end. Maybe I'll mess up, maybe I'm like, come on. But what I fully understood was, I saw this amazing figure. This amazing, wonderful man, prayerful, took care of his family, did what? But for him, between him and God, he knew who he was. He was flawed. He was a sinner saved by grace. But when he would allow God's goodness to shine, others would see and say, wow. You see, when God is coming here and he's talking to your life, and some of you are feeling, I'm not good enough. Who am I? What am I gonna? I'm too young. Oh, no, you don't know what I've done. It's not so the spotlight is on you. All God is saying, like, oh man, all those people that you're afraid to speak to, I want to speak to them. All those people that you're afraid about what they're looking at you, don't worry. I just want them to see me. And some people will clap for you, some people will praise you, some people will hug you, some people will think you're awesome, but it's just the goodness of God allowing itself to flow through you. Perfect love casts out all fear. And that's what I generally feel the revival is going to be like in your city, in our country. It's just allowing, okay, God, what do you want to do for me while I'm here at school? How do you want to, who do you want to see this light when I go home? In my kindness, in my work, in my projects, in my friends, and every single time we fall short, we're flawed. We're not Him, but at the end of the day, I really hope that by the time we leave this earth, people will see that goodness of God. And for many of you guys, I don't know what your relationships are with your parents, but I want you to know this. There's a Father who loves you so much, and He's trying every single way to get you. The Bible says, for God so loved the world so much that He gave His only begotten Son. Through His Son, He decided to show us His love. So today, the song that we're going to sing is a song called Father's Child. It came to me a year later after that incident. It was my father's birthday. It was June 20th. I woke up, I was in tears, and I grabbed the first piece of paper that was next to my bedside, and I started writing this song. So I hope you guys are blessed. I have a really cool story about time too, but I'll tell it later.
Revealed through where I am found to be, but I'm not asleep right by his side. But I'm not asleep right by his side. For I have tasted grace so sweet I can't let go. Once an awful mess, now pure. And what can separate me from my Father's arms? I will always be my Father's child. I will always be my Father's child. So let us come to Him, no matter who we are. The price is paid, the path is clear. Don't be ashamed, His love has washed away our sins. He's made us new, all by His own. He's made us new, all by His own. And it's not yet revealed what we shall be in times to come, but what can be more glorious than to be with eyes shine.
You say I'm wrong, yeah. Wanna talk about us, yeah. Wanna talk about us, baby.